Welcome. It's 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. The Tooele City Council and the Redevelopment Agency of Tooele City are meeting in a work meeting. This meeting is being held at Tooele City Hall in the council chambers located at 90 North Main Street in Tooele, Utah. We are also streaming this electronically on the Tooele City YouTube channel. We'll start with a roll call. Councilwoman Manzione.
Present.
Councilwoman Goches.
Present.
Councilman Hanson.
Present.
Councilman McCall.
Present.
I'm Councilman Brady, and I'm also present. We'll move on to item 3, which is the mayor's report.
Thank you, Chairman. As you saw just a little bit on the screen there about the April showers, bring May flowers. Spring has sprung, and yes, we've still got a little bit of snow out there and some wet weather, but we have been feeling the effects of spring. We're grateful for part of that. This is spring break right now for our students that attend school, and I just want you to know in the last couple of days, we have seen a huge uptick in juvenile problems. We opened up the restrooms at all of our parks 15 days early. We usually open those up on April 15th, but the weather had been good, so we opened them up on the 1st of April. And before the end of the day, we had one of the parks, every restroom, every bit of paper, not only the toilet paper, but the paper towels were all in the toilets, clogging them and making a mess. So we just are asking the public to please watch out. I know everybody's been cooped up all winter long and we want to get out and do things, so run around the trail and stay out of the bathrooms. Something that we can do that is a good thing. So again, I've had a couple of we've had our police involved in a couple of juvenile issues too. So we're just saying, hey parents, watch out. Take a good hard look at where your kids are and what they're doing, and try to encourage them to do good things, because there's a lot of good that needs to be done in the world. So I've got a couple of other items that I want to report to you tonight. The first is we have a new traffic signal at 520 East, 1000 North. That is up by England Acres. This is an intersection where several months ago, maybe it's been over a year, but we put up the pedestrian signals so they could push the button and it would flash the lights. But we did a further study on this intersection, and it really does require the traffic signal. We'd only had that up for a day or two when we already found that if people use the intersection correctly, it works. You get held up when there's a lot of traffic. We get that. It's the purpose for a red light. But we have found that when people are making left-hand turns, people are passing them on the right so that they can get through. That puts our pedestrians and other cars in jeopardy. So we have already had a new study conducted on how we can put in some left-hand turn lanes. So that is taking place. We will do some restriping, but that's going to take a couple of weeks or so. So hopefully everybody just is driving very good and they're careful at this intersection, because it is very busy. I don't have a picture of this next one, but I do want to mention it, that we do have a new four-way stop on Utah Avenue and Coleman. This is on the corner where the North Lake Elementary and the Head Start building is. Again, we always do a traffic study first to make sure it warrants the four-way stop. Our streets department is so awesome. They planned this signal purposely. 2 weeks ago, they put in the flashing, the big signboards that say, hey, this is going to be a four-way stop in 2 weeks, so be expecting it, be watching for it. So people have had 2 weeks to know that. Then they installed the traffic signal so that it would take effect, or the flashing four-way stop, that would happen during spring break, so there is no school. Next week, there's going to be kids at this intersection. But on the first day, we had officers down just to enforce and to watch what was happening. And it was reported back to me that there were many people that ran that stop sign. It's flashing, it's red. The message boards are still up. I just am amazed at how people are not paying attention when they're driving. So we will continue to monitor the intersection. The stop signs are there to stay. It is done for safety purposes. It's going to keep the children a lot safer, we believe, and that's what the study shows. So we just want people to be careful down there. The next one, we've had two really great events this week. One was the ribbon cutting for the Tooele Technical College expansion. 14 years ago, when this building was started, the funds were secured to put this original part of the building. The cost was $15 million, a little over $15 million. This expansion, we understand, was $27 million, but it did double the size of the campus. The Tooele Technical College is essential to our economic development. Businesses come, they ask what education we have, and when they find out, you know, we do have a university here, but we also have a technical college that can train their workforce. That makes a lot of difference for those businesses and bringing new jobs. So we are grateful for the partnership that we have with the college, and I just want to express my appreciation to the previous administration. Mayor Dunleavy and the council at the time understood the importance of education and started this education corridor, which is what it has become. And I know today that there are businesses that we have landed to come here to provide jobs that we would not have had if it were not for these education opportunities that we have. So I appreciate their foresight and understanding of how important it was. So Technical College, great event. There we are with, we received this little kind of a, I don't know, it's not a trophy, but it's what we're holding there in the photo, and it is just to help us to remember what a great day that was. Okay, and then the best day of ever this week, nothing tops this event. This was our ribbon cutting and our dedication of Fire Station number 3. This has, again, been several years in the making. It would not have happened without your support and your willingness to do what it took to bond for this building and to show our residents that you care about safety and you care about our fire department. There is a wonderful article in the transcript bulletin, lots of pictures that just came out today, great article. And we will be, if we haven't already, there will be many more pictures on our social media and our website. And also we did videotape the event, so those residents who weren't able to make it that day. I would also like, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to get a video somewhere down at the station and maybe go through it to, we could post that also. And we've also talked to the fire department about maybe conducting some additional tours for people that weren't able to make it that day. It is a beautiful station for our fire department, but it is our residents that are paying for this building, who own this building. This is their building, and we want them to know what is there for our department. So we appreciate all the support. It really was a fantastic day, and never thought it was going to happen, and it really did. So thank you again to all of you and for being there and for supporting us. Thank you. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Nguyen. We'll move on to item 4, the council members report. We'll start with Councilwoman Manzione.
Sure. I also attended both ribbon cuttings for the TTC and the fire station. I agree those were great days and great additions to our city. I went to, this kind of goes along with what the mayor said, I went to the Zero Fatalities meeting, which was last week, and they had mentioned that in March alone in Tooele City there had been 37 crashes. So apparently we need to pay just a little bit better attention on the road because we never want one of our family members to be the one in that accident, especially if it's somebody is hurt or it's fatal. So just to draw awareness to the council that there is, you know, as we get more traffic, there are more accidents. So anything we can do to, the city's sharing a lot of social media posts about zero fatalities, if we can share those also and just get the word out to our residents, you know, it'd be helpful. And then just to let you know that we are discussing some zoning updates to our business park zoning. If you remember, it's probably been a year or more, a couple years ago, that we made our business park zone, and it was zoned around the railroad spur that we were hoping to have, and it just doesn't seem practical. The cost is prohibitive, and we don't think that business is going to come in and pay for that. We certainly can't pay for that, and so we're working right now with a new study. Sorry, I have some allergies. A new study to just look at some zoning updates for that business park, and we'll be bringing those to you in the near future. And then I emailed you some other information about the RDA, what's going on there. That's my report.
Thank you. Councilwoman Goches?
Thank you. I also attended the ribbon cuttings that the mayor was discussing, and we also had a tour on Friday by our Fire Chief, Matt McCoy, and it was really impressive because Chairman Brady slid down the fire pole. It was really awesome, so that he took the time to do that.
I didn't know we were going to say that publicly. Don't tell Cammie, right? Yeah, it's still her, yeah. I'm not a firefighter for a reason.
We're really proud of our fire department and all that they do for us, and I just want to echo what the mayor said about the public safety and what we're able to provide to our citizens. It's really great for our community, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hanson?
Yeah, same thing, only I got to hand it to the fire department. I mean, they made that open house on Saturday morning amazing. You know, they just did a lot of things, and they were all there in their dress uniforms, and it was just perfect. So it's pretty cool. And then I went to planning commission meeting, me and Marisa, and so that they're always doing a great job. And I was off with other family things the rest of the time. So anyway, that's my report.
Thank you. Councilman McCall?
I attended those other two things, and it was something else. But as I said, as I get older, I have a tendency to forget some things. But I know I did something else. I'll remember before the meeting's over.
Are you going to pipe in then and just say it? Or?
Oh, yeah, I remember. But kudos to the fire department and also the school. That was really neat. And in the future, I think for ribbon cuttings, we need to borrow their machine.
Their robot?
That was totally cool. It really was.
Yeah, it was.
It was like show-offs. It's okay. That concludes my report, sir.
I also attended the Tooele Tech ribbon cutting, and it was really cool, a really unique way they cut the ribbon. And then the fire station, and just echo what everyone said, that was an amazing event. I attended the North Tooele Special Service District monthly meeting. The district's doing well. They're talking about planting more trees, so that always makes me happy to hear. And then just the weekly staff meeting with Mayor Nguyen and her staff, and just every opportunity I get, I like to say how great the staff does, and a lot of behind-the-scene things that the citizens don't see. But they're great and do great for our city. So that concludes my report. We'll move on to our discussion items. Our first discussion is a discussion on Desert Rose Business Lofts water usage proposal. This is presented by Amy Johnson from Y Street Capital.
Did you guys get a presentation?
We did.
Okay, great. You want to pull that up so I can reference that? So if you're familiar, I came earlier to several months before talking about these business lofts and how they've been successful in other communities. And we have been working on the site plan here, and now where we're, I don't want to say stuck, but where we're paused is we're at the Planning Commission, and we felt in working directly with John Perez, and he's been fabulous to work with, we said, okay, this might, to discuss the water rights and how to allocate them, that this might be a great time to talk to the student city council. Sorry, not student council, different. Helping my daughter with this student council thing today. Okay, so obviously you're familiar with the location. We don't really need to dive into that so much. If you want to jump to the next part. This site plan is not set in stone. We have not gone through all the nitty-gritty of everything that's involved there because we're waiting and working on this item first. So if you want to jump to what we found is, for example, Mr. Perez said, well, it would be really helpful if we understood, like, what do these units actually use? And so we took upon ourselves and we went through two different ways of two different cities and how they were doing it. So the first one is, this is the marketplace in Bluffdale. These are all different cities that have this type of product. But the marketplace is very similar to what we are going to be building. So if you want to go to the next stage. Each unit is individually metered inside, and actually, because you have one address of one side so the commercial address is on one side, and the residential address is on the other side. Like, there's two different streets. So if there's one Utah Street and Nevada Street, the residential would be named the same unit number, but Nevada, and the commercial street would be named the same number, but Utah Street, as an example. So they're individually metered, and so that what we were able to do is we went into the Bluffdale City water usages and took all of their data. And you have, the city has all of that data. I believe we collected it as well, and we showed all the different data, and we compiled all that data inside. And so all of these units, none of them are vacant for a commercial or residential use. And one other thing that's really important to notice, because we are working with our partner, Oakwood Homes, is really interested in building these with us together. And they asked for, historical data, and they said, hey, can you pull up the sold comps? And something that's very interesting on these particular units, so these ones, they have these marketplace that are the mixed use. And then there's a larger development that they have the regular townhomes farther back in. Well, the regular townhomes have, people are moving in and out of them, and you can see them being sold. And these commercial units, and there was only one that was sold over 6 years ago. So they're not being sold very often, and it was really difficult to show. When they first were purchased and they were kept, and people are running their businesses from them. You can drive by these, and so these guys there's a nail salon, there's a farmer's insurance, there's an esthetician in there, there's a dog groomer. They're just all of these different types of great small businesses are being ran inside of these, and it gives the owners an opportunity. So now let's talk about values of how we figured out to come up and show, like, how do we account for what actually will use a water usage. So if you want to jump to that, thank you. So I kind of talked about this, so we can. And so this is another one in West Jordan, but we didn't have their data. So we felt like the Bluffdale data was really good data, and then we have Brigham City's data. So method one, we're first going to go off of Brigham City. So they just passed an ordinance because they felt like it was complicated to determine what there was. So this is cut and paste directly from their ordinance. And the only reason why I say this is to show a comparison. Is we're showing this is what one city does, then this is what actual hard data of water is usage, and then when we compare the two, you'll find that they're actually very close. We're really close together. So Brigham City's for their water, they take this calculation is directly out of their code. 58.7% times the 10 acres, and that's how many water feet that you would need per your developments. They don't go off of the uses or your landscape plan necessarily. Now their code guides landscape plan of saying, hey, we want drought tolerant or things like that inside their code, and we're happy to comply with those things. So for this particular, if we use their calculation for Brigham City, our piece of land at 5 acres would equate to 8.8 acre feet total is what we would need to purchase of water rights. You want to go to the next one for me? So the marketplace data, we took all 9 units, commercial, residential, and again, these are actual data from Bluffdale City's water totals of it. None of these numbers were made up for it. We compiled all of those. We did not make an average or anything like that. But we did calculate, okay, the entire development is X amount. It has driveways, trees, shrubs, open space, all of those parts in the landscaping. And so if we used the marketplace data as far as, hey, this is what actually was being used in these developments to support these commercial buildings and these small businesses, this is the calculation. It's actually a little bit lower than Brigham City's for it. So if we use that 5 acre-feet with 43 units being used, and I won't go through all the math there because I'm not very good on the spot doing my math, but so total needed for this development, for our acre-feet in our space, to provide this many commercial buildings of small businesses, is we would need 7.86 acre-feet to provide this many opportunities for commercial spaces. So we're just asking, again, these, and we've talked about these are all type of uses that we have seen inside of this space. Our development agreement, which you haven't seen, or it's at Planning Commission right now, and we're paused because we want to figure out these water rights first to input them into the development agreement. But inside the development agreement, that goes through all the city attorney has done a really good job in making sure and saying, okay, what about noise ordinances? What about parking? And looking at everything there. So you're very well taken care of there. But these are all business examples of people that are running businesses here in Tooele that want to run businesses here, and it's a really high demand for it. And that's why Oakwood is, even them are saying, yes, we have done this in other states as well, and they've been a way higher demand than our regular townhomes even, because this product is so needed. So thank you. So if you want to go, and using these spaces like this, we're actually lowering the use of water rights because it is all combined into one. And then we can make smart decisions as far as landscaping and other things to reduce our water for it. So that's really, I admit, all these other ones you guys are welcome to read through, but the beginning of part of this part is we're trying to provide opportunities for small business growth, and that this is not a residential use that we're trying to disguise with this commercial part. What we are trying to provide is to provide a commercial space with residential use. And I'll give you an example. I actually was just speaking with a couple of large brokers in Salt Lake area, and they were over in Utah County. And this was for even I have an office space in American Fork that I rent on a main street, that I own on Main Street that we operate, and that we have small businesses come in and rent sub-offices to us. And they say the reason why is because they're saying, hey, we would love to be able to work where we live, but there's just not, this space is just not available. And I would love to have more commercial use near our home and have this multi-unit mix of it. So this is definitely, we're bringing jobs here. People are coming to these types of destinations versus saying, hey, I'm going to go and live in Tooele and then commute into the city and work that instead of providing my business here and growing things here. So. And I think it's also really important to understand as we grow those things, for example, our own business, we started in our garage, that's how we started our business back in the day. And you see a lot of entrepreneurs and things like that, they start there, they start small. But then when they get their employees and they start to expand, those employees are used to working in that area. And so when they go to look for another larger building to expand, they're wanting to expand and they stay in the same area because that's where their employees are. That's where that's where their customer base is. So this is another way to help take this commercial space. And then if somebody does outgrow that, great, they can build and expand inside of Tooele and allow them to grow there instead of making them move to another city to fit their space. So I'd love to answer any other questions that you may have.
So you mentioned expansion. If they're living in this townhouse though and they're expanding, are they still operating out of the commercial unit? Or that's one of my biggest concerns is that you're attaching it residential and commercial. I love the concept on paper, but there's so many questions. If the business fails, if the business expands, then it becomes a residential unit and not both of them. That's where I'm having a hard time getting to where that happens. All of us know statistically lots of businesses fail, lots of startups fail. So how do you prevent it from just becoming another residential property?
Space in there. Well, first of all, the unit itself is a more expensive unit than for a residential unit for it. So that's number one. Number two, I guess I can't promise any of those things because I don't have a crystal ball, but I can look at past businesses like the marketplace and see that, okay, these businesses have been there for quite some time and we're not having a lot of matriculation, and that all have, like if you go and I encourage you, if you are up for a drive, to go and drive by those units, you can see on there, you can see their signage, you can see everything on their doors, and none of them are, well, I did that myself, and none of them are vacant. None of them are just sitting there as like an empty unit for it. So I'm just going off of past experience. I mean, yes, businesses do fail, but what I have found is that entrepreneurs are also stubborn people, and if one business fails, they'll repurpose that space and find another business for it because it's their livelihood, right? So.
And then you mentioned there's two different addresses. So is that how the taxing entities, like the county, know that one portion is commercial? And
That's how
one's
they're doing it in
residential?
Bluffdale. We're open to that suggestion on here. The other way, for example, Brigham City doesn't have the two different streets, and so they have an A and B unit for it. But yes, great point.
Any other questions?
You did numbers with the other cities. Have you, John and Andrew, have they been trying to calculate what our water usage is that we calculate out of? What would that? Have we tried
Right,
to
so
figure
they
that out?
wanted us to go through and they said, okay, well, could you give us an idea of the type of uses that would be in here, you know? And we started with that and saying, okay, but we also didn't feel like it was, you know, that's us selecting and saying, okay, we're assuming this, or we could assume this, or we could assume best case scenario, or we can assume worst case scenario. And so instead, that's why we went outside and looked at other cities and direct data of other people and their mix. And they, like I said, they are not all office in that space, in that marketplace. They are, a dog groomer takes more water than a insurance agent for it. And so we took all of that data together to help. We're trying to provide as much information as possible to help for the water usage.
I was just wondering, with our water usage calculations they use right now,
Yeah.
without trying to change it for you, what are they requiring? What is Tooele City requiring for
Well,
you
that's
for
the,
water?
Yeah, Paul.
Yeah,
Paul's
I'll
raising his
let-
hand. We'll
yeah.
let Paul.
I couldn't see Paul, sorry.
oh, okay.
I know he wasn't over there.
Sorry, I'm in my field attire, no disrespect. No, they did provide a lot of information on the development in the Bluffdale area. And looking at all of the data, the question that we were looking at the city is there increased water demand because of any of the commercial uses? And the answer is no. Our city standard today for any type of single-family residential development is 0.25 acre-foot per interior use. We don't distinguish between an apartment or a home, because we've done it as a collective. So under our standard, for the 43 units, it'd be 10.75 acre feet of water, plus whatever the exterior area was, which we would encourage to be drip. So our standard is a little higher than what the other communities have been accepting.
That answers my question.
Yeah, but we were looking at, do they take more water, and the answer is no.
No, right, okay.
Roger had a comment as well.
Yeah, I just wondered if you had any experience with, or aware of others that have tried to use deed restrictions to make sure that the business owner is the same as the property, as the residential owner. If deed restrictions that prohibit leasing or subleasing of the commercial or residential space, or any of those kinds of tools to help with some of these concerns.
Yeah, that's a valid point for it. What the other cities have talked about, because that was brought up inside there, two main arguments came across that. Is one was property rights and making sure, like, if that individual has purchased that property and then they decide, and sometimes even just from a tax stance, they may lease it to their sister company, inside of there. So we didn't want to add, and other cities chose not to add these deed restrictions in there for it. So ultimately, there was a lot of discussion, talked about that, and between property rights and the whole point of this development or this type of development is to promote growth. And so when we put a lot of deed restrictions on side, it hinders things. Now, you can, inside of the development agreement and inside of our, the agreement, you can have, we can put restrictions in there as far as, like limiting, you couldn't turn in, you could say, okay, you can't have, and you can make the accommodations to make this, so it couldn't turn into like an ADU or something like that, if that was your concern. But the other cities in having them, they did not do a deed restriction. And most of it is because of that second part, is the fact that a lot of other companies, like even though I own the building, my company leases the company, leases my building from me for tax advantages for it. So I would hesitate to say that part. And then just to clarify on, the largest part of the discussion that we are wanting is not necessarily that we want a lower amount of this 8.8. We can work with you on saying, okay, if that's what you will require. The largest part that we were concerned with and that we want to make sure is that we could utilize and pay the city for their water rights instead of us having to go and find private water rights on there. And that's why we're providing this unique method for it. If we have to go and find our private water rights, it'll probably kill this development and we can't provide these units.
I think we've discussed this before, but I hope I've expressed this before, that is my concern, that this would be the first time I'm aware of where the city is providing residential water rights. And are we opening up Pandora's box here? There's other developers in this room right now who I know have had to go buy water rights from private sources. And I'm worried about what it's going to do with other developers. And then do we have an influx of every developer wants water sold to them from the city for residential purposes? And
Except for that's the sole meaning of why this is a larger commercial use with a very small residential component that we're adding to it. And it's just to make this, it's a hybrid use. So yeah, I understand. This is a new product. You guys are definitely trailblazing through and have to answer it. And that's why I'm here at a work session to help to discuss it. But that's a really vital point for us to be able to say, hey, to be able to bring these 43 businesses, these commercial opportunities, can we do this? So.
But isn't it equal residential and business use? If there are 43 business units, aren't there 43 residential units also?
Right, but people aren't coming to these type of units just for, they can find more affordable housing in other areas of Tooele. They could almost buy a single-family home for it if they wanted. That is not the reason why people are buying this type of product. People are buying this product because they want to run and operate their business and have a storefront and a professional storefront for their business.
Is there any other questions or comments?
I had one thought after what Roger said and what your first comment was. You was worried about the places becoming just residential on the bottom. So then it made me think of Roger's putting something out that they could not in their deed or something or whatever legal has to do, because I don't know any of that part, to make it so that lower unit cannot be.
Inside, yeah,
it can't
just
be,
residential.
It can't be residential.
Well, because of that, the address part, they're going to be paying more. It's not advantageous for them to have it just as a residential unit. Again, they can find a more affordable residential unit in other areas of Tooele, and this way that now they're purveying, there's extra taxes or there's extra costs that are associated with this space.
Sure, I understand that.
Yeah.
It's more
Okay.
money and it costs more for them to be there.
Yeah.
I can just see that, what Justin's saying, 20 years down the road, it turns into a top and a bottom of residential, unless we do something to prevent that. And that's what Justin's concern is. It's not necessarily my concern, but it's what Justin is. So Roger's comment made me think of that, so.
But that's
But
my
there's a way to do that,
That's my concern, is because how do you enforce it? Enforceability is a huge problem. We can pass an ordinance that says you can't do that, but is the city going to go into someone's private property and tell them that they can't do that? We had a discussion recently about weeds and how we can't get people to cut their weeds, but we're going to enforce them to not operate or not live in their business. It's not realistic to assume that won't happen. In my opinion, it's unenforceable. If you had an HOA that was trying to enforce it, I've seen HOAs, I have a neighbor that has a boat parked right where he's not supposed to. Does the HOA enforce it? No, they don't. So how do you enforce this? That is my biggest concern, is that 20 years from now, the way we wanted this to be, it's still functioning as that. And
Yeah, and I guess the
I think
freedom,
like in Bluffdale and things, how long have these been around? Are they new? Are they 2 to 5
They're
years?
10 years old.
10 years, okay. That's good. But if I can get comfortable with that and find a way to enforce things, water is by far my biggest concern. I can get on board with the commercial residential, but I have a lot of concerns about water. And I think hopefully the council has that same concern, because if we open it up to where residential can use the city's water rights and purchase from the city, I don't think that we can keep pace and drill wells fast enough, as we'll have requests coming in. And then the city's in a lot of trouble, and I want that on record because I think it's important for residents to hear that we cannot open this up to where every developer is trying to build out here at one time. We have to be able to build wells before we get all these requests, so. Any other comments, questions?
I will just say that I actually love the concept. I've been a fan from the beginning about this idea. My big hangup is the water and selling it for residential purposes. And to this point, we've heard a lot of discussion. I've become a bigger fan of the whole concept, but I haven't heard any way for us to separate the selling of water to make it seem like we're not selling water for residential. And I'm looking out at the developers in the audience, and I know at least one of them would build more if they had more water right now, and if we would sell them water. And we can't, for the same reasons that Councilman Brady just said, so that's.
and
my
are they
big hangup.
providing those businesses with it? Have they come to you
To
saying,
me,
we'll provide these
To me, it's
businesses?
still residential. We're still providing water for residential. I just can't get past that.
So a space for like somebody that owns a grooming shop or something like that, that's not important to provide that type of space? Like if it was just a commercial plaza of a strip mall or something?
I think it's important. I'm afraid
And
of
then we
the-
have
the
housing
le-
on top of the strip mall, like.
Yeah, but we don't have that. We have maybe a few on Main Street that are zoned where they can have an apartment above it, but to the scale that
Right.
you're speaking of, I can't think of anything like that in
And do you
Tooele
think
City
you
or
don't
the
have it because people
water.
don't need it? They don't want it?
No, I don't think has anything to do with it. If you had water today, you would be building it, right? It's not an issue of if it's the best thing and it will sell. It's an issue of water. That's all it comes down to, in my opinion, at least. Because if you had water from a private source, you would build it because it is a great product, and I believe that as well. On paper, I think it works really, really well, and I think it works in other cities because they don't have the water issues that Tooele City does. And my purpose as a city councilman, how I view myself, is that I'm planning for the next 50 years, right? And I can't make a decision that I could sleep at night knowing that I made a decision that affected my kids and my grandkids. So
Right, so if I
that's why I'm
put,
worried to do that.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding. If I placed a restaurant in this 5-acre plaza and took those water rights, those would be granted, right?
Possibly. We
So,
have a rubric.
yeah, and so you would care about that type of business, but not these small businesses that need it?
I care about other developers feeling like they can come and request Tooele City for residential water rights. That's what I care about.
Okay.
If there's a way that the city can safely and legally do this without opening Pandora's box and every developer in Utah wants to build here and expects Tooele City to grant them residential water rights, then I'm all for it.
Okay.
But
And then
no
just so
one
I
has told me how
understand,
that-
if
that
I
could
have to
happen.
pivot, I guess I'm just trying to understand, because hearing these answers, it means like, okay, we're at a dead end, and so I have to pivot, and so so I don't have to waste your guys' time coming back. If we did not industrial flex, but man-car garages for a plumber that are, like their man door, and they have a mezzanine upstairs that we're building in Logan that has, a second floor upstairs. Is that a permitted use for commercial that you guys would accept?
Is the mezzanine a residence?
Well, up there they have, they could be apartment necessarily. They have a bathroom, and I guess it goes back to, what I mean? Like it has a bathroom upstairs and there's a whole second floor, and then it's how do you enforce that people aren't living upstairs of those units? It was just a question that came up in Logan, so I was just wondering if that's a, if I made these a commercial unit, but the commercial units have kitchens and bedrooms in them.
Roger has a comment. and I can-
Okay, I'm just trying to brainstorm.
Tooele City does have an ordinance that allows accessory dwelling units, but as a general rule, we do not allow them in commercial districts and in commercial buildings
Okay.
unless it's a caretaker unit for a storage complex. So we do not have a generous commercial ADU ordinance.
Okay,
But as far as knowing whether certain creative or other uses would be allowed or appropriate, I think that's where we would need to get you back with the city planner's office
and figure out.
look at what the possibilities would be, so the council's not having to play that role.
No, I appreciate that. I'm just trying to brainstorm because I had been, multiple business owners had communicated to me saying, hey, when are those coming? And that's why Oakwood is like, hey, this is a very important product for us, and we've seen it really successful. We've seen it successful in Colorado. We've seen it successful in Utah. We would love to build these with you. And so, and they're saying the same thing, like this is a higher price, and it's because people are coming direct for the commercial part. So I
So
understand.
my question, though, is that the only way it pencils out, is there has to be a residential component to it? Because if you know that the city, it's the council's policy that we've made that we only use the water rights for commercial use, right? And then, like Councilwoman Manzione said, there's a metric, talks about jobs that are coming and economic impact to the city. Is that the only way it pencils for you?
Well, it'll pencil for me. What I'm trying to pencil for is the end user. I'm talking about being a business owner myself. I'm talking about like, oh, if I was able to tie my mortgage, I can get one FHA mortgage, 30-year fix versus a 20-year adjustable rate for a space or a lease, and I'm promoting home ownership with business ownership at the same time, and I can get one loan for that versus your other options for a business owner are, most of them, you're only being able to lease your space for it. First, this type of space, you're only able to lease that space. Not very often you can purchase that space. And if you are able to purchase it, the price is a lot higher. So we were trying to provide this creative solution.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to, I'm looking at small businesses because I work with a women's circle that promotes women-owned businesses, and I'm talking with them on a daily, I help and coach and work with those women on how to grow their businesses, and this is one of their things. Like it would be fabulous if I could work and my kids could be upstairs and my business is downstairs. And so this is why I'm a little bit passionate about this solution for it, and why I'm actually taking it on, looking for multiple projects like this that I can build across Utah, because we look for pieces like this that would work for this space. This is a product that we strongly believe in, and that's because I work with the Small Business Association and on those, and I speak at those, and I hear the business owners and saying, this is what I need. This is a need for me. And so that's what I'm trying to provide. So
I'm curious, as you discuss it with the staff again, if there's a way to separate out residential and commercial water, even though they're built the same, so you would have to provide some water. But
some water, that might be a good compromise that we could work with.
Some commercial water. I don't know if that's an option or not, but you're shrugging your shoulders, but yeah, I get it too, because anything's an option, I guess, is we just have to figure it out.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent suggestion, that maybe as a compromise that we could work together with.
Obviously, there's some private water out there somewhere, because people are still building, so.
Right. And I shouldn't say that it's complete dead. We are working with it, but it's definitely going to slow the process for it because it's a long process. So
Agreed.
Yeah. So if
water's
we
difficult.
could, if it's maybe even we're dividing it in half and saying, okay, yeah, half of these are commercial units and half of them are residential, and we provide half for the residential, maybe that's something we could accomplish.
That's kind of what it appears to be, because the bottoms are commercial and the tops are residential, so.
Right.
It is 50-50, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a thought.
So, and I guess the difference that I was trying to bring with Bluffdale's water is that the residential units versus the commercial residential units weren't actually utilizing more water. That's what I was trying to bring with that data, and the city has all that data. That's what I was trying to show, is like a residential townhome and a residential with a commercial plaza underneath is not really utilizing more water than these residential ones.
So
Go ahead.
this is what residents need to realize, and developers. Bluffdale is part of the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District.
They have lots of
They
water.
they can get water resources, drill wells, move water from place to place, unlike Tooele City can.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to explain to residents, is there's a reason that Tooele City functions differently. We don't have this district that is going out there and funding things.
Yeah.
And then when the council has to come back and raise taxes because we have to drill a new well, we have to provide infrastructure for the water to get to the businesses and residents, this room will fill up, we'll get yelled at, we'll be told that we're incompetent. That's the difference between Tooele City and Tooele County and a lot of these other areas that have, even northern Utah, they have water districts that go and fund these projects. So
Yeah, and
I get the
understand-
frustration from
And I
developers.
understand your guys' spot there. I was just trying, I guess the part that I was trying to articulate is that this will provide solutions without And yes, we are tapping into the commercial water, but we're really not using more water because of it. So that's what I was trying to articulate. And I probably, my passion probably got in the way, so I apologize.
We understand that, and that's,
I understand it. It's,
like I said,
it's
on
just a
paper, I
line.
love the idea, and I agree with you that I think it would sell quickly in Tooele, but I don't know that that's the best thing for Tooele City. And that's who I'm representing right now is Tooele City. So that's why I'm getting passionate about it too,
Yeah.
because I just don't think people understand the water issues that are going on in Tooele. We can grow, but we can't grow as fast as other communities
Because of that.
because of the water, lack of a water district.
Would you, Justin, would you be amendable to the, if we did split it in half?
I'm going to be honest, I would be very hesitant to do that. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I'm going to encourage the council not to use this meeting for a live negotiation. If they want to make a proposal to you, then that would be appropriate to do and discuss at a later date.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank
Okay,
you for your time.
Thank you. All right, move on to our next discussion item, a discussion on Compass Point RSD, presented by Andrew Agard, the Community Development Director.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate this opportunity to present this rather big-ticket item to you tonight. The Compass Point Residential Special District is an application that's been submitted by Perry Homes to propose essentially a new zoning ordinance for approximately 1,200 acres on the northwest quadrant of the city. And I call it a big-ticket item because this document, if it were to be adopted by the City Council, really will govern development in a large portion of the city for 10, 20, maybe even 30 years. So it's an important document, and we have worked considerably with the applicant. This is the third draft that you have. We have gone through 2 drafts before and had numerous meetings to try and fine-tune this document so that it benefits the developer but also protects the city. And I'm going to be tag teaming with Perry Homes tonight. I'm going to do a brief presentation on the RSD and then turn it over to them to actually present the document. But first of all, a residential special district, just for the council's information, is a tool that the city has in its toolbox that we don't use very often. This is the first time we've actually brought one to you. But it is a tool that provides a developer with the opportunity to write their own zoning code, to determine their own development standards, to determine their own densities, their own unit types. Basically allows them to flex their design muscles. They're professional designers, city staff are not. And so we wanted to have this tool available to developers to develop their product the best way they know how. So that's what the RSD is for. What the RSD does not do is it does not supersede state code, or in abbreviation, LUDMA, which is the state zoning law. It does not supersede building codes, and it does not supersede fire codes. So what an RSD is a zoning code. It supersedes our standard zoning ordinance, but it does not supersede anything else. So they would still have to meet all of the state codes, building codes, and so forth. An RSD is authorized by Tooele City Code Title 7, Chapter 14B, Residential Special Districts. This code tells us how to title a zone in an RSD, how to process it, qualifications, and so forth. So as I mentioned, the applicant is Perry Homes. They're proposing this RSD for approximately 1,227 acres, an anticipation of 3,600 units. Now I'm going to address that in just a second, and then they're anticipating 50 acres of open space. This is a map showing the general location of the RSD. The area affected by the RSD is highlighted in red. You'll notice that there's some pink areas that are outlined by a dashed line. Those are commercial properties. They are also owned by Perry, but they are being proposed to be addressed with a commercial special district in the future. So the RSD applies only to what you see highlighted in red. That is a considerable size of property. It surrounds pretty much the Overlake Golf Course. There is the area that is the darker red would be the RSD zone. The area that is kind of hatched in a tan with a hatch pattern is an area that's included in the RSD. However, they wanted to maintain that area for specific reasons, and I'll get into that. Now, this is the Overlake Development Residential Tracking Sheet that I keep track of to make sure that we're in compliance with the settlement agreement. When the settlement agreement was adopted or accepted, there was an allotment of 3,600 units. So anytime Perry comes in with a residential subdivision, I add that subdivision and I remove those units from that 3,600 allotment. There's actually about 3,319 units remaining in that allotment. So when they come in with another application, we'll add that there to the sheet. So that just for the council's information, it's not actually 3,600, it's about 3,300. Now, when you apply that to the 1,227 acres, it comes out with a unit density of about 2 units per acre. So basically, there's more land than there is for available units. And so the area that you see kind of hatched there in tan, that is an area that they may not have enough units to fill that. So they wanted to include it in the RSD, but there may be a point where they change that over to light industrial or some other type of light commercial use. So that is the RSD being requested. I'd like to turn it over now to Perry Holmes to actually explain the RSD to you. It's their document, and I think they would be better versed at explaining that. Let me bring up their presentation, and then I'll leave the iPad here for them to do that presentation.
Thank you, Lindsay Neve with Perry Homes, Mayor and council members. We are presenting to you Compass Point, or the Residential Special District, and we've spent quite a few meetings and lots of hours in trying to put this together, and what we hope is the best approach in providing for flexibility to not only help us achieve a great community, but also comply with the city's goals and missions. Some of those being a balanced growth and preservation, housing options for every stage of life, a thoughtful design community, and connected livable spaces. As presented by Andrew, we've got the zoning that takes it from, currently we have R17 zoning across the entire site. So the residential district, as outlined in the maroon, would give us the flexibility for several different products, which we can go into more detail. The other item that Andrew had touched on was the number of units on 3,600. And I want to make mention that we'll work with staff very closely on those numbers. There was a total of 4,800 units across the entire Overlake. And between ourselves and Tooele, we just did a split. We're trying to make sure we have a full calculation of what those units are so that we can appropriately allocate the remaining units provided for under the 4,800 total. That's why we had the 3,600 in there, but we'll make sure that we go through those numbers in its entirety to make sure we appropriately reflect that final number. It is our intent to stay around the 2 to 2.5 units per acre as it relates to the entire community. Again, land use that's sitting there, we're at medium density. I believe on the land use category, the 2 to 2.5 units comply within that range. As it relates to the concept plan, now while we have overall areas, there's some already existing development and I would say natural barriers that kind of provide a better outline of what you can envision for the community to come as far as development areas and pods, and what we will probably move forward in terming as villages as we continue to move forward with the development and move forward with preliminary plat and further design. The other thing we're trying to take into consideration is appropriate transition of uses. So knowing that the overall average is 2.5, we're going to keep a majority of the density closer to the commercial area or closer to the larger arterial roads that are present within the community. As mentioned before, we want this a community that someone can move into at the very beginning of their stages of home ownership, all the way out as they continue to transition through life. So we've got some smaller home products, including front and rear-loaded townhomes, a cluster home product, smaller garden front loads, garden rear load, traditional homes, which we currently have available in our existing communities. We're developing our cottage type, which is a slightly larger home, and then our collection and estate, which are our largest. And the estate, just as an example, are the homes we are currently building within our temple lots, surrounding the temple at this moment. Our RSD includes design standards that will allow for the flexibility across all of these product types, including the standards and regulations. It also covers monumentation and signage, parking, access, street lighting, street standards that we've been working with the Special Service District. It is our intent to annex in this development into the North Tooele Special Service District. And then the landscaping requirements and making sure we're meeting all of the water conservation requirements moving forward in our development. The open space that's included within the community is 50 acres on that open space, 47 acres a minimum of parks and detention, and then 3 acres in the minimum of preserved open space, as shown in the green on our open space plan. As it relates to the master planning, we understand that we'll have to go through and do traffic impact studies and work with our water modeling on the finer location of all of these items. But we think that we've done a pretty good job on looking at all of the master infrastructure that would be required for the number of units we're proposing across the community. At the locations we're showing within our RSD, we're showing where we are anticipating and the size of roads we're anticipating, including where we anticipate the water, sewer, and stormwater. Again, we understand that all of those are going to be subject to further modeling the city standards as we move forward on an engineering basis as well. And then I will leave it there and open it up to any questions that you might have.
Any questions or comments?
I just wondered if you could go back, and I was just interested in your cluster design, and it just couldn't, it flipped through so quickly, I didn't get to see that.
And this is provided in more detail in our full application in front of the city. This just gives you a brief overview on the general lot layout, as well as what the typical elevation would look like.
Okay, so shared driveways, is that what I'm seeing, or?
Yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
One thing that's great about this product type is the ability to have a smaller, more affordable single-family home with a yard that they can actually have fenced in. A lot of the economic products can be kind of rear-loaded products, hard to have a yard. Here, you can have an affordable home where they can have a dog, they can have kind of their own kind of fenced-in area. And so the ability to have the shared driveway really impacts the economics to shift the affordability to the homeowner in a smaller product type. So that's the intent of behind the kind of the courtyard product, and we've seen that function in many different areas. So
Thank you.
I can't find it now, but somewhere it mentioned so many acres of open space. Some of that's a park that it mentions would be
Correct.
a regional park. But with other developments, we've seen where open space is not always usable open space. Are you trying to make open space usable, and rather than having it, if you go down 2000 North right now, you'll see that there's grass along where the fences are. It's not really usable. It looks nice. It's ornamental and looks great, but it's not usable. So is it usable open space?
Yes, the intent is, especially on the large area, that we're going to work with the city in dedicating that over so that it's a large regional park, and then it's usable for the activities that are needed for the community.
Okay, thank you. And then the trail system, I love the trail system and where it would go. Would that be done, I'm assuming, in phases? As you develop an area, you would do a certain part of the trail, correct?
Yes, the trails are located along the roadways and included as part of our cross sections of our roads. And so as we continue to build the community, that trail will continue to be built to connect it once all the community is completed.
Are they freestanding trails? Or are they like a trail on a road?
There will be a trail along the road.
Okay. All of the trails will be that way? There's not any that are,
The ones currently proposed right now as part of the plan, yes, are along the roadway.
Okay.
Again, the community is unique in that the roads that are included in there provide some nice circles that kind of encompass everything. So from a trail perspective, it makes sense for us to locate it there. Now, that does not prohibit us as we're moving forward with any of the villages in the future as we move forward to include them, to add some additional extensions onto that. But right now, as a global, kind of looking at the master overall picture of the community, it makes sense for us to have it located along the roadway, just because it is, the circulation through the community right now is ideal.
okay. And when you say along the roadway, like, there's the right-of-way, and then the trail's just like next to the curb? It's not on top of the curb?
No,
along
it's
the-
adjacent to it, and we've got some landscaping in between, so.
So
Okay.
it's separated.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's good, okay. All right. Any other questions or comments?
It's a lot.
There's a lot, yeah.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
But this is, we're
but it's
talking
great.
like a 20-plus year build-out,
It
right?
is.
This isn't like it's coming tomorrow kind of thing.
Oh, no,
So,
no way, but.
Yeah, this
gotta be able to
is
sell
a
it.
multiple decade community that will be developed over time.
It's just a lot. I'll be dead by the time they build.
I hope you're not dead in 20 years, Ed.
And I think
I'll be dang close.
one of just the really great parts of and Andrew did a great job of explaining this, but the 3,600 units are already, like, we can go build the 3,600 units. But doing this district, it allows us to really make diverse product types and make a more creative community than just, if you go and just put the same house everywhere, 3,600 of those, it's going to be terrible, right?
Agreed, yeah.
And so we're really trying to find, making a community that's going to be actually really cool, a community that people will want to live in, that they will understand. I live in Compass Point. It's a great place to live. And there is kind of that ability to move up where you're not losing residents because they started, like, I love living in this community, but we're out of space now. So I'm going to go from that cottage product up a level to a different house product. And you kind of have that variability. And so that intent is very real. And the point of the special residential district, I think, is.
Oh, and I definitely like that. It's a lot of houses, so I'm just
Yep.
trying to wrap my head around it, but it's.
For sure.
And I know that's going to come. It's just what it is there, but, so I like the idea of having the different size homes in the same part of town where you can be with your friends and be in your same church ward or whatever it happens to
Yep.
be, so. Yeah.
And you had mentioned a lot of the higher density would be like near collector roads and,
Yeah.
and I think as you see it built out, you'll see, you got to see the whole picture, right? And that's what's hard for a lot of people to do, but yeah, I don't have any other questions
So
or,
when are they going to start on the, I
Tomorrow.
turned it on tomorrow. So when are they going to start on the 3,100 area? Because if I'm not mistaken, there's going to be apartments and stuff there. If I'm not mistaken, I saw that,
And the commercial, yeah.
yeah, with, adjacent to the commercial, but when is that going to start?
So on 3,100, we are anticipating submitting the site plan application for that multifamily use, the apartment complex use next week on that site plan. We are also anticipating moving forward with some of, again, what we're terming as villages and development within the RSD boundaries as soon as, I would say, June and July. So we've been actively planning. Again, we've gone into quite a bit of detail on a lot of the infrastructure, and we're hoping to move forward with villages, that are over by the existing as well as up on 3,100.
I only said that because he was saying, oh, I'll be dead before they do some of this. I
Yeah, they'll have some built, obviously, yeah.
just want to make sure some of it's built before it broke out.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
please.
I do have a question, and we did attend the groundbreaking where the roundabout was, the first one, and it was beautiful. We love the view. I think it's a great view to the high school and to the new temple that has been built, and it's a great location. I'm just wondering, because this is a multi-year process, when will that open space be available to the city if we were to use it for, recreation complex, and when could we expect to be able to plan for something like that?
I don't think that we've discussed specific planning, but I'm sure that we can dive into that. I know, as mentioned before, we've gone quite a bit into the detail of the infrastructure. One of the villages that you will see coming probably first and foremost would be right adjacent to where that would open up the roadway that could be developed and provide immediate access to that regional park area. So I'm hoping it should be available here in the near future.
Great. Because with a lot of homes come children,
Yes.
and recreation opportunities are really important. So I think that will make that community really desirable, as you said.
Granted, we just are completing England Acres, so we'll have to save up some money first to
Exactly,
make that park happen.
exactly.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Our next discussion item is a discussion on a zoning map amendment request by D.R. Horton to amend the conditions of the PUD planned unit development zoning overlay for Western Acres PUD for 86 acres, affecting 4.5 acres located at approximately 2000 North Copper Canyon Drive in the MR16 PUD zoning district, presented by Andrew Agard, the Community Development Director.
Thank you, council. There we go. I'm blind without my slides, so. This is more of a housekeeping item, and it involves the Western Acres PUD. I believe all of you were on the council when we approved the Western Acres PUD about 4.5, 5 years ago, I believe.
Not me.
This is
It was
the
before me.
Exactly. Okay. This zoning map amendment is a request to amend the standards of the PUD. If you recall, when this was approved, D.R. Horton requested the PUD in exchange for improving Middle Canyon drainage as it extends through the project. At great expense, they relocated and improved that drainage. They put a trail in there, which is becoming a great community amenity, and eventually will tie into the trail at England Acres and prevent a really good trail system throughout the city. At that time, the zoning was granted for the MR16 PUD, and the development is highlighted in red on the zoning map here. It encompasses about 86 acres. And this is an aerial photograph. Currently, about 50% of the development has been built. So they are gradually moving north to south through the development, constructing the townhomes and so forth that have been approved. What we've encountered is when this PUD plan was approved and was reviewed and approved by the council, staff had not had a chance to really do a technical review of the proposal. And at the time, we anticipated that we would encounter some design issues that needed to be addressed. And this is one of those times. It's a fairly minor issue. It does not change or alter the configuration of the subdivision, does not change the number of units, does not change the number of unit types. But there is an issue that we need to address now, otherwise we're going to have a problem in the future with this. And it involves the Middle Canyon drainage. The Middle Canyon drainage is about 70 feet wide and extends from the southeast corner to the northwest corner of the development. And as you can see on this map, those townhomes on each side of it are approximately 8 feet from the edge of that drainage. Now, right now, that is an easement line. It is not a property line. So if they submit their subdivision plan and site plan applications, we would approve that because the buildings are not set back from a property line. We measure our setbacks from foundations to property line, not to easement lines. Now, it is my understanding that D.R. Horton would like to eventually deed or dedicate this drainage to Tooele City for perpetual ownership and maintenance. And in order to do that, they have to create this as a parcel. And that easement line then turns into a property line. And then we get into setback issues with those townhomes. We create a bunch of townhomes with non-conforming rear yard setbacks. Currently, the MR16 ordinance requires 20 feet for a rear yard setback for townhomes adjacent to property lines. What we need to change is we need to change the PUD standards to 8 feet for rear yard setbacks, and in 1 or 2 cases, 1 foot for a side yard setback, and it pertains to this drainage easement. Currently, these are the PUD standards that we currently have for this development. There is a section for R17, and there's a section for the MR16. The proposal would only affect the MR16. And so the proposal is that for rear yard setback for townhomes, it'd be 8 feet from property line, but 10 to 20 feet from property line adjoining public or private streets. We put that in there to make sure that we don't create conflict with other ordinances that require a larger setback when adjacent to a public street, which their development is fully in compliant with. And then the side yard would it reads pretty much the same way, it's just 1 foot. So this is a request to try and eliminate potential conflicts with setbacks in the future. As I mentioned, it does not change the proposed building layout. It does not change the total unit count or the unit type or land uses. It's just more of a housekeeping thing to avoid legal non-conforming situations in the future. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you. And Mr. Lewis is here from D.R. Horton as well. So,
Any questions or comments?
Maybe this is a dumb question. So since they've only half built it out, what would, if we do that, it'll be for the whole property, what would stop them from changing the way their housing, their proposed housing is?
that's an excellent question. This particular amendment would only affect about 4.5 acres of the development, not the entire development itself.
And so that will be written up to where it's just for that section, not the whole property.
No, it won't be written up that way. The layout has already been established by D.R. Horton. They don't want to deviate from that. So I see what you're saying. Like, would they change their layout in the future to have a reduced setback?
I don't know if it'd be advantageous or not. I just know we've made mistakes like that in the past.
Yeah, I don't see that being a problem here. They've already had, their layout is already established. They don't have any intent on redesigning their development. And that's a lot of that is dictated by where the roads are and how the roads are connecting and so forth. And basically, they're maximizing every space they have in that development. So I don't anticipate they're going to be moving units around. Wouldn't benefit them at all.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Chairman, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please, Roger.
Well, I will just indicate that it is written up to apply only to the MR16 underlying zone portions of the development and not any of the R17 portions. So that is, or R18, I should say, that would be also a significant limiting factor.
And the R17 areas are the ones that are highlighted in green on the map.
Okay. So, yeah. So the MR16 portions are just those on the, Andrew, if you could go back to that drawing, that one right there, just that
In the red.
tongue to the left that's in the MR16 area. That's how I wrote it up, and we think it's okay.
And Ed, if I could also address that a little further, they've already submitted their preliminary plan applications for the rest of the MR16, and what you're seeing is what they are proposing, so with the applications that we have.
So really, we should be fine.
We should be fine.
That answered my question, going back to the map.
Okay, thanks, Andrew.
Okay, thank you.
Our last discussion item is a discussion on updated water and sewer fees effective May 1st, 2025. This is presented by Jamie Grandpree, the Public Works Director.
I was going to say good morning. I've been going for 10 days, so I don't know if it's morning or night. Good evening, council. Last year, about this time, we did the ordinance 2024-11 and 2024-10 that set water rates and sewer rates. In that ordinance, we did set it for a 5-year time period, and so I'm just coming to you tonight just to let you know that we are now moving to year 2 in both of those, in the water and the sewer rates. They were already set and approved in the ordinance in last year, but I just wanted to let you know that we do have those rates changing effective May 1st, which would be on the bills in June 1st. The culinary water rate is going to go up another 7.25% on the base and another 2% on the usage increase. It's set at $10.73 right now for a 3/4 inch meter, which will go to $11.50. The usage rate goes up about a cent to 2 cents, depending on where you're at on the schedule. So like the tier 1 is going from 77 cents to 78 cents. Tier 2 is $1.02 to $1.04. So it's pretty minimal on the tier usage. And then the sewer rate is only going to be a 15% increase. Last year, we did a 50% increase. It's only 15% this year, going from $10.50 to $12.08 for the rate code 301, which is most of the residential use. So just letting you know that that's going to effect, and if you have any questions, I can answer those.
It's the same rate increase for year 3, 4, and 5, right? Wasn't it a 15%? I can't remember off the top.
Water is a 7.25% across the board for all 5 years.
Okay.
Sewer was a 50% increase at first, and then a 15%, and then it's a 5% for the next 3. So after this one, it would be 5% for 3 years.
And this is
each.
what we decided instead of a one-time.
Yeah, one time,
increase,
yeah.
Okay.
Huge increase.
Any other questions or comments?
Thanks for reminding us.
Yeah, no problem.
It was in the newsletter, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
will be.
it was in the
Yeah,
newsletter,
it was.
yeah.
Okay.
It was in, the first newsletter.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Jamie.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we do have a closed meeting tonight, but I recommend that we recess and then we'll reconvene after our business meeting and go to a closed meeting. So we're going to recess at 6:51. And then we'll reconvene at 7 for the business meeting.